Alright, well it's been a year since I uploaded that last video on McDonald's and their ongoing war with pricing, and it did quite well. I was also somewhat optimistic that McDonald's would take a turn in the right direction in 2025, as last year they were seriously losing touch with the demographic that built this empire in the first place. I mean, it feels like it was just yesterday that the everyday person, the busy parent, the college kid, or whoever was looking for something cheap and fast could easily afford a meal at McDonald's. It was the go-to for not so healthy but a filling meal that wouldn't break the bank and cost you half a tank of gas. Even this time last year, their own executives admitted that things were going downhill when it came to affordability overall. They were pushing to be more of a premium fast food experience, which simply is just not what McDonald's is or ever will be. But somehow they're still struggling to accept that reality. CEO Chris Kempczinksi acknowledged this affordability crisis and publicly promised that changes were coming and customers would see cheaper options, revamped menus, and much better deals. There was also big talk about reintroducing a value menu in some form and simplifying things so McDonald's could once go back to being a top choice for customers who are on a budget. But here we are now, a whole year later, and what's actually changed? Unfortunately, not much at all. In some cases, it's actually gotten worse. While McDonald's did play around a bit with their menu and made some strategic PR moves, the price of their food still feels like a slap in the face to people who are counting every penny. And this is the prime demographic that made them successful in the first place. And people just don't seem upset, and publicly speaking out, they're starting to completely revolt against the once dominant fast food chain, and they're praising their competitors for having much better affordability. They're even praising some non-fast food restaurants, which are becoming better options since customers can spend $1 or $2 more and get actual quality food that doesn't result in them spending the night on the toilet. We joked in the last video about an $18 Big Mac meal at a few locations, but it's not just a joke anymore. It's really becoming a reality at a lot more locations. McDonald's went from being the face of affordable fast food to a company that feels more like it's selling premium burgers at a premium price without actually being premium. We previously broke down how a Big Mac meal costed $3.99 in 2022, $6.19 in 2023, and then jumped all the way around $7.49 around 2019. But now in 2025, we're seeing more and more locations in that range of $14 to even $20 for a Big Mac meal. Meanwhile, the household income in the US in 2023 was $75,143, which sounds decent, but when you dig a little deeper, that number doesn't include dual income households, and it doesn't really reflect how much of a price increase we've seen in other things with housing, gas, groceries, and everything else. And especially for people living in a single income trying to budget, that money can disappear fast. And McDonald's has just simply become more of a luxury, and their quality of food doesn't really reflect that as a luxury. And today in 2025, inflation for essentials like housing and food from a grocery store has also outpaced that increase. The Consumer Price Index still shows that persistent inflation in core categories, and Americans are spending only what they need to survive, meaning that a nice trip to McDonald's to treat yourself is no longer an option for a lot of customers that used to be regulars. Rent is also a huge reason more customers are on a stricter budget, and the economy is just full of a lot more uncertainty. So while incomes ticked up slightly, the cost of living continues to leapfrog it, and McDonald's doesn't seem to care as their focus is elsewhere. So let's talk about the specifics. What exactly has changed since last year? McDonald's did roll out some new beef blends and upgraded their cheese to melt better, along with promising to bring back old classics like the snack wrap. According to a Delish article, they also claim their burgers are now more juicy and flavorful, but in all honesty, who cares? I personally liked it the way it was before. Nobody asked for fancier cheese and juicier burgers. We just want an unhealthy, tasty, low-quality meal that we've known from McDonald's at a price that reflects that. There's been a few vague statements about recommitting to value and affordability, but corporate McDonald's frequently pushes the narrative that customers don't know what they want. And because of that, they put affordability on the back burner and they use customers as a scapegoat for falling short in profits. In an interview on an earnings call, CEO Chris Kempczinksi once acknowledged that their lower income customer base, people making under $45,000 a year, is continuing to shrink. And that same demographic used to be their core. But even with all this talk of change, customers aren't seeing this reflected in the bill when they're still paying over $13 for a basic meal that's still garbage even with juicier burgers and meltier cheese. And grocery store prices haven't seen any improvements either. but it is still much more affordable than McDonald's, which was never the case even a few years ago. A gallon of milk sits around $4, a dozen eggs cost as much as $6, and bread sits around $3 to $4 a loaf. These numbers are slightly higher than last year's, but they're no longer skyrocketing. But even with these prices compared to last year, eating at home still beats out McDonald's in value by a long shot. It may not beat the convenience, but for most people that's less of a concern in our current economic state. And when it comes to your morning breakfast, you can make an entire breakfast at home for less than the cost of a hash brown and coffee now in the drive-thru. So more and more people are continuing to talk about things like that and publicly causing more pressure on McDonald's to make an actual change. But honestly, at this point, I really don't think McDonald's cares at all. People are still buying it, and while profits are declining, they're still bringing in billions of dollars. Just like last year, the entire TikTok subgenre dedicated to price rants has grown exponentially. These $6 fry videos specifically are going viral every day, it feels like. And it's a really bad look for the longevity of McDonald's business, yet in the last year they've really done nothing to acknowledge it. While the online complaints may fall on deaf ears, the quarterly earnings and the decline in actual customers is what speaks volumes. In Q4 2024, McDonald's sank even further, decreasing sales by 1.4%, and that's a lot when you're looking at billions and billions of dollars. So while we're eagerly awaiting the Q1 earnings from 2025, McDonald's finally took some action and launched something they call McValue Platform. And while it does sound somewhat promising, it's mostly just smoke and mirrors. It's their new value menu that offers items like a small McChicken for $2.99 or a small fry for $3.49, and it's simply not worth it. It's just smaller portions still at a high price. And they also attempted to introduce a few combo meal bundles, but most of it's still left around $7 to $9, not the $4 to $5 meals that people remember. And again, prices do vary by location, so in many cities those same deals push past the $10 mark. It honestly all feels like a really weird game of semantics. They're calling it value, but customers don't feel like they're getting a value. And when their attempt at value fails, they just blame the customers, saying they don't know what they want. And especially when people are comparing McDonald's prices to full-service restaurants or grocery store meals and finding better deals elsewhere, it's pretty clear what the customer wants. Economic stress is at an all-time high. And in the past, McDonald's was almost a life raft for families that needed a cheap, quick meal. This is what consumers want. According to Food Business News, 2025 has seen a spike in people turning to discount grocery stores and dollar stores specifically for food. People are really strict and budgeting harder than ever, using cashback apps, comparing unit prices, and overall just cutting back on eating out. And when they do decide to eat out, they're choosing places where $10 actually feels worth it. At the end of the day, McDonald's has just failed to understand who their real customer base is. Or, even worse, they do understand and they just do not care. That's the part that hits the hardest. They seem to be focused on new items and increasing quality when nobody asked for it. Customers rant and complain about how affordable McDonald's used to be, but McDonald's corporate can't seem to understand and pivot back to that. The company built itself on the promise of cheap, fast, and reliable food, and branded themselves for the everyday person's burger joint. Now, they're leaning heavier on the middle and upper class. We touched on it in the last video when their CEO even said we continue to gain share with those groups, and it's really not a good sign for those lower income groups. But I keep coming back to why chase the demographic that's never been the bread and butter that built McDonald's in the first place. The people who used to regular McDonald's are choosing other options. Some people are eating at home, others are switching to competitors like Wendy's, which also has much better deals closer to that $6 to $8 range, and some are opting for food trucks or local diners. There's just a lot more options than McDonald's that you can really stretch your dollar. So is there ever a chance that McDonald's will actually return to its roots? Will there ever be another true value at McDonald's again? It's really hard to say, but based on the last decade and statements made in the last few years from higher ups, I'm not hopeful about it. They made it clear that they're moving away from affordability and toward a more premium positioning, but still trying everything to grasp onto that lower middle income demographic that's quickly fading away. In the end of the day, do they really care about the low income demographic slipping though? They may talk a big game, but they continue investing a ton of money into AI ordering systems, fancy kiosks, app exclusive deals, and digital loyalty programs, which all sounds really cool and futuristic and sleek in the big picture, but it doesn't fix this core problem. The food just costs too much for the quality, and attempting to improve that quality is completely the wrong approach. If they truly want to recover their declining customer base and combat customers seeking a better balance between price and quality, they'll need to do a lot more than tweak the cheese or release overpriced value menus. They need to reassess who they're serving and why it mattered in the first place. Otherwise, they risk becoming this weird middle-tier fast food brand that completely lost their identity. Too expensive for low-income customers, too average for the high-income customers. And now the ball's in their court and customers are watching really closely. McDonald's is still teetering on that line and could potentially win back a large customer base if they play their cards right, but only time will tell. So I guess we'll all just have to wait and see. Thank you a ton to all the new viewers and those taking the time to watch this video. A lot of time is spent researching, writing, and editing these videos. If it made you say, well, that's something, then we achieved our goal here today. Please consider supporting the channel. The best way to do that is by liking and subscribing. I'm working really hard to improve on each video, so sometimes they take a little longer to come out. And again, I really appreciate you watching this. As always, stay safe and stay curious, everyone.